And it felt like every month when I would get my period, my heart was ripped out of my chest and just stomped on into a million pieces.
Mel, it is an absolute pleasure to sit back down with you again. You've become actually really crazily. I was actually looking through, I found the photo that you and I took together, the very first interview that we did back in Bondi, back in the day. That was a little while ago. And it's this amazing picture because I felt like it was the beginning of such an amazing friendship, which today we see this transformation, and especially about what we're going to be talking about today with you and Holy Mama, because you've become this magnificent, magnificent mother. I knew you as a magnificent friend and a magnificent woman, but now I can truly see you as a magnificent mother as well. And I say that for the listeners and for everyone that joins us as well, because I get to see behind the scenes, you know what I mean? Like on social media or when we do this content, it's like things can look really good, but no. Like when you're here at our house, our families are together, and I'm like, I'm looking at Bambi and she's just like the most marvelous human being on this earth. I'm just like, oh my God, this is delicious. I find it remarkable to also know what you've done leading into becoming a mother, how you've consciously done this, how tolling it can be going through so much of the thought process as to what is needed to be able to do this consciously as well. So I just want to say thank you. I think it's really amazing.
Oh, my friend, I'm so grateful to be back. And I love having you as a friend and your beautiful family. And when we first met, we've since had 3 girls between us. So you had you had Sunny and Arlo when we first met.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've had 2 more, and I've had
Mm-hmm.
Bambi. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been such a beautiful journey. And from the moment we met, we instantly became such good friends. And I just love and adore your family. And actually, there is something that I don't often talk about, but your 2 girls, Sunny and Arlo, were what made me really, really excited about being a parent. Like really excited, because I hadn't met little girls like yours. You know, I've never met little girls like yours. They are divine. They are from another planet. They are just so beautiful, and it's testament to you and Lauren, and just so beautiful. And so you guys were definitely expanders for me in the parenting world. So I'm so glad that we're friends and that our daughters get to play together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and thank you for the kind words. Now, this opens up a beautiful conversation where there's a few things I would love us to really get into, which is one, fertility. I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, something we don't struggle with. So I can't really talk to that like very deeply, but I know that you're very clued in with this. Then things coming as around like home birth, then things coming especially to about how best to nourish and nurture a mother after birth, and obviously child as well, and especially looking at that 4th trimester period and what this looks like. And then really coming about to where I really want to start is like, why did you want to birth this Holy Mama program? Like, where did this really come about from you?
Mm-hmm. Well, it came about from my own journey, which is where so many things are birthed for so many people, for different industries and different fields. Like whether it's what you did, that came from your personal experience, and this has definitely come from my personal experience. And it all started in 2013 when I met my husband Nick, and I met him, and we had known each other for about 3 years before that, but he was in a relationship and I was in a relationship. And then we both found ourselves single, and we were being put in the same room. Like the universe was just like putting us in the same room. And I'd always thought that he was really handsome and that he was a good catch, but he was in a relationship. So I never really thought much more of it. And then when we got together in 2013, I knew that I wanted to marry him, and I knew that I wanted to have his babies straight away. I was like, I want to marry you. I want to have your babies. And
I
before
would
that,
too. I think he's
yeah.
stunning. I think he's a handsome mofo. I would too. So I'm totally with you.
And so before that, I had said that I didn't want to get married and that I didn't want to have babies, but that was because I wasn't with my one. And then I met
Mm,
my one and I was like, let's get married, let's have babies. And he proposed to me after 2 weeks. And then we got married 5.5 months later. And that was almost 10 years ago now.
mm.
And so, people used to say to me, when you know, and I was like, whatever, that is the biggest load of BS, but it's actually true. Like, when you know, you know. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so we got together, we got engaged, we got married 5.5 months later. But when we got together, we knew that we were going to have babies one day. And for both of us, we knew it wasn't in the immediate future. We knew it was a long way off. Like, we were both building our careers. He was, just about to launch his album. Like, so many amazing things were happening. And we just knew that it was a one day thing, not in the immediate future. However, we went and saw a naturopath straight away and we said, do all of the baby prep tests on us because we want to have a baby one day. And she was like, oh, that's so sweet. When are you thinking? And we're like, oh, not for years. And she was kind of like, what? And I was like, no, but we're going to start conscious conception now. And she was kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm going to start priming my body right now. And she was like, okay. So we got all the bloods done. We did all the tests and we started priming our bodies. And we found out some things that, we both had, like I had high levels of mercury and all sorts of things were going on for us. So we were like, okay, cool. We'll start our prepping of our body. And we did that. And we did a lot of the mind stuff as well.
Mm,
And we did that from 2013 until 2018. So that's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,
mm,
18, 6 years. We were in that conscious conception mode with no intention to have a baby just then. And so 6 years, we were priming our bodies. We were getting ready. I was reading every book under the sun. I was going to workshops and seminars on pregnancy and birth. I was watching birthing videos and the documentaries. And my friends used to say, are you guys wanting to have a baby soon? And I was like, no, not right now. And they're like, I had piles and piles beside my bed of books on birth and things. And they were like, you're the most educated, non-pregnant woman I've ever met. And I became obsessed with it.
mm,
I was obsessed. I loved birth. I loved watching births, empowering births. I wanted to go
mm.
to all of my friends' birth. I was like, can I please come to your birth? And they were like, no. I'm like, oh, damn it. Okay. So I was just obsessed with it in a healthy way. And, some people are obsessed with pottery and things. I was obsessed with birth and getting pregnant and all of these things, and like understanding the body and understanding physiological birth and what happens in the body and the hormones that happen and get released and how the body expands and all of this stuff. And so I just was learning. And then at the very start, Nick said to me, because he saw how obsessed I was with all of this stuff, he said, you're going to write a book about this one day. And I
Mm,
said, yeah, I will. But the program has come first. I will write a book, that is next, but holy mama, the program is here right now and that has come first. And it felt right that this came first. And so we got to October 2018 and I woke up one morning, I rolled over to Nick and I said, I'm ready. And he was like, just like that? And I was like, just like that. That maternal switch was flicked on within me overnight.
mm,
And he was like, okay, babe, okay. So we decided to wait until January 2019. And because we were still doing more body cleansing, working with our doctor. And we decided January 2019, we did a beautiful ceremony. We had incense and mantra and chanting and meditation, all of the things. And I literally thought we would get pregnant first time. I had no fear around that. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I'm so healthy. Nick's so healthy. We've been prepping since 2013. Surely this will happen the first time. And it didn't. And I was so shocked. And so then we went again the next month and it didn't happen again. And I was like, what is going on? And then the next month, and then the next month. And each month, my heart, that yearning to be a mother, just grew stronger and stronger. And it felt like every month when I would get my period, my heart was ripped out of my chest and just stomped on into a million pieces. It was just the hardest thing. That yearning was so deep within me. And I was like, what is going on? I couldn't believe it. And I lived my life in 2-week increments, like waiting 2 weeks to ovulate and then 2 weeks to either get my period or to find out. And that went on for 18 months. And every month when I would get my period, it was gut wrenching, heart wrenching. And I would cry and wail for what felt like all of humanity, or all women who have ever struggled. Like, there was this one cry where I was on the floor in the fetal position and I felt like all of our ancestors, all of like the women behind me with their hand on me, like all of these women who had ever struggled to get pregnant, all there with me, in the room with me. And it was so deep. And it was one of those really therapeutic cries. Like, afterwards, you feel like you've just, shed so much. But when I was in it, I was just like, this is the hardest thing. And those 18 months were the hardest thing that I've ever been through. And every month I thought, okay, this is it. And then it wouldn't happen. And I lived my life like that. And I did it in silence because I didn't want the internet's opinion. I didn't want everyone on social media giving me their opinion. So, like, my practitioners knew and a couple of really close friends knew, but that was it. I didn't share it even with my parents. I didn't share it with some of my closest friends because I just didn't want anyone's opinion. I wanted to go on this journey for myself because I knew it was a spiritual assignment for me. Because I did all of the tests and there was nothing, quote unquote, wrong with my body. And I went through that phase of like, what's wrong with my body? My body is failing me. I went through all of that. But then when I realized it wasn't about that, and for me, it was a spiritual assignment in surrendering and trust and letting go, then I just knew that this was something that I needed to do on my own. And so I did so much purging in that 18 months. I did so much inner child healing work. Oh my gosh. I did so much like red thread lineage healing work with my mum, my mum's mum, and all of the women before me. And it was such a journey. And I took notes the whole time of everything that I did for my physical body and for my emotional body, and then also for spiritually what I did. And I've been taking notes since 2013. And then also I was in a very unique position where I had a top rated podcast. So I would just interview the world's best doctors, fertility experts, shamans, whatever I wanted. And I'd have them on the podcast. And then after we'd finish recording, I would then say to them, oh, by the way, we've been trying for 18 months or whatever it was. And they would be like, oh, Melissa, like, I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it publicly because this is my own assignment. And we'd end up having another hour chat, which I wish I'd recorded now. We'd end up having another chat. And, these scientists, these doctors, these New York Times bestsellers, they were there to support me. And I'm so grateful for that. And now I know that everything I went through and the position I was in to have this top rated podcast, to interview these people, it was all for a reason. And I've put everything into the program Holy Mama. And you get me and my wisdom and my teachings. And then you also get 19 of the world's best experts on conscious conception, on pregnancy, on empowered birthing and postpartum, and then on conscious parenting. And it's all in this 8-week live program, which the doors are open right now and they close November 4th. But that is why I created Holy Mama.
This is amazing. And I really appreciate you sharing this. There's a few threads that come to me that I want to pull on. And I think the first one is, if someone is listening and they are in that, and I think you said that so well, like the what's wrong with me and this isn't happening, what's your advice for them now? What are the words that you think actually are most useful?
The what's wrong with me and blaming me, that's not useful, and that's not supportive. And what we want to do when something isn't going the way that we desire is to go, okay, what can I do about it? Like, let's take inspired action instead of like sitting in the what's wrong with me, poor me, why is this happening to me? Which I was there. I was 100% there for many months. Like, what's wrong with me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? I'm so healthy. I don't understand. I've been prepping since 2013, but that wasn't supportive for me, um, physically or emotionally, and it wasn't supportive for my relationship either. And
Mm,
so then I got into action mode, and I was like, okay, well, let's do all of the tests to see if there is anything that maybe needs tweaking physically. Like, is there something that I could help with there? And if someone is in that place, then that's a really good place to start. Get all the bloods done, get all the tests done, just to see and get a baseline for where you're at. And maybe there is something that could slightly be tweaked, and or that just needs a little tweaking, that could really support your body. And then also like the mindset stuff we've got to look at as well. The thoughts that we're thinking, like, they can really hinder us, and stress can really hinder us getting pregnant. Like, that was a big one for me. I realized that I was really stressed.
mm,
And when you're stressed, your body goes into fight or flight, and your hormones, your reproductive hormones, turn offline. And they say, well, we won't reproduce right now because you need to run from the saber-toothed tiger that's threatening you. So you need to be in rest and digest, and as stress-free as you possibly can. But I know it's really challenging when you're in it, but feel the emotions that come up, feel the sadness, feel the feeling like a failure, or whatever's coming up for you, feel it all, and then get into inspired action mode. Okay,
mm.
cool. This hasn't happened. What am I going to do about it? Okay, I'm going to go get these tests, and then I'm going to look at my mental health. I'm going to look at all of these different things, because they're all part of the puzzle, and a holy mama, like, the program is broken up into looking at the physical, looking at the emotional, and then looking at the spiritual, because it's not just about the physical, it's not just about the body. It's what's going on up here that also really needs to be considered, the stress. And then it's also the spiritual, that other being. And this was huge for me. The other being has their own timeline.
Mm,
They have their timeline, and it's almost selfish of me to
mm,
think, well, why isn't this happening on my timeline? Like, I want it to happen now. This is my timeline. But Bambi's like, Mama, I got my own timeline. I'm
mm.
coming, but I got my own timeline. And when our timelines sync up, that's when I will come. And so that was a really big shift for me too, is like to integrate more of the spiritual and remember that she is her own soul with her own karma, and she is coming in when it's right for her. And that was a really big shift that I had on my journey. So we've got to think about the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual.
I love this. Now, coming from a partner's perspective, a man's perspective specifically, like I remember very clearly my thinking process, my internal dialogue through each of the four births, but also I think especially when Lauren had a late miscarriage, what my thinking process was through then, so that I could be like, how do I best support Lauren through this? How do I best support her going through it? I'd love to know from your perspective, from you going through it, and obviously Nick being the most fabulous human being in the world, also, like, how do you as a couple actually go through it when you're having that, oh my God, this isn't working the way I want it to work?
There were very challenging months, very challenging, I think, as well, when it takes a bit longer. Like you're really excited at the start and you're like, okay, let's do this and this is going to happen. And then it becomes about ovulation and let's do this. And it becomes like something to do. And that juicy love and that connection that you two have, it got lost for us a little bit. And
Mm,
then we found it again. But
mm,
it took Nick kind of sitting me down saying, hey, babe, like, remember what this is about. Like, we're creating magic. We're,
mm,
we're bringing in love, pure love. Like, she is pure love consciousness. And how do we create love? How do we create magic? By making love, like literally
mm,
making love. And I was like, wow, yeah. And we'd really lost that a little bit. And it took us getting some support, outside support, from our mentor. So we had a couple of sessions with our mentor, and he kind of sat us down and we kind of dissected some things and worked through some things, which were really powerful for us to do. And then we came back to this beautiful place of deep connection. And that's when she came through.
Isn't it remarkable how these things come together, and how children especially are such an amazing, not tool, but such an amazing vehicle for our own self-development. Like, and that's the thing, like I look at my girls and I'm just like, oh my God, I have to get my shit together because I need to be the best person I can be for you. And I find this so interesting because, especially coming from the prepping for years to be able to become pregnant, and then I would love to go into the now you're pregnant. What's your thought process now, Mel? What's the process now? And even coming into, if you were to become pregnant again, let's say, what would your kind of like roadmap be for how you're going to go through that process?
Yeah. So I'll talk about pregnancy, but I just wanted to also say, yes, children are personal development on steroids. They like, forget going to Tony Robbins. Like, I know I love Tony Robbins so much, but I'm like, just have kids. Like,
Yeah.
just have kids. Because you are, if you are aware and if you want to, if you're conscious, they are the best personal development. Like,
Mm,
she is calling me to rise
mm,
every day. There is no resting on my laurels. There is no
mm,
sitting back in my comfort zone. Physically, she forces me, not forces, physically, she inspires me to step up. Emotionally, like, because kids are sponges, they copy everything that we do. And I'm like, okay, do I want her to mimic the way that I speak to myself? Like, is that something to be proud of? And, in my early 20s, if I had have had a child then, like the way that I spoke to myself and looked at myself in the mirror and like talked about my body, oh my goodness, there's no way I would have wanted a little human to mimic that. But, she really does call me to rise, and it's beautiful, and it's never ending. Never ending. Like, you can't like have one day where you're just like, stuff it. I'm not showing up today for myself and I'm not showing up for anyone else. Like, you got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up. And it doesn't mean it's always rainbows and butterflies, but they're like the best accountability buddy ever. And
so true.
so, yeah. And so, going back to the pregnancy, like, once we got pregnant, it was just the best ever. I think Nick had a little bit more fear than I did during the first trimester. he had a, because he was just nervous, like, because he, it took us 18 months, like
Mm.
he was a lot more nervous, even though he didn't say it, like I knew, like he said a few little things, but I could tell he was more nervous than I was. Like he kept on saying like, okay, we got to keep boosting your progesterone, like to hold the pregnancy, because progesterone holds the pregnancy. And he's like, okay. And so we were doing like the wild yam cream where you rub
Yeah.
that on your body, things like that. So he's like, do your
Just
cream, like,
swimming in yam.
yeah, doing breaststroke in yam cream. You know, so he was a bit more, yeah, a bit more concerned, I guess. Like he really wanted it to
Mm.
happen, and so did I. But I didn't have any fear. Like once we were pregnant, I was like, "We're good. We're good. I know we're good." And so I had a really beautiful pregnancy. I loved being pregnant. I loved my pregnant body. I did a pregnancy meditation every day where I connected with my baby and my body, and I loved on my body so much. And I loved being pregnant. And I think when it takes you a bit longer than usual or other people, that gratitude is just off the Richter. Like I was just so
Mm.
grateful. I was so great. I had nausea and I felt very nauseous from about week 5 or 6 to week 12, but I didn't care. Like I just was like, whatever. I can do this. You know, and I had
Mm.
other things like randomly I would get a bleeding nose like through the first trimester, which was so random, but that happens. But I was like, I don't care. I just didn't care. I was like, I'm pregnant and I'm so excited. So my gratitude was just so high. Um, so there's nothing like that I would do differently. Like I loved it so much. I loved being pregnant. I loved connecting with her. I did yoga, I did Pilates, I meditated, I did Qigong and uh, Tai Chi. And I just loved connecting with her so much and loved my pregnant body and just embraced my changing body and was just constantly in awe of the miracle that was happening inside me.
Mhm. I absolutely love this, Mel. I just want to like honor and thank the way that you go about what it is that you do. You do it so well and you do it with so much self-love. I think it's incredible. I really do. And from everything that I see, and I especially want to say that for the listener to be like, wow, this sounds really good, but it's like, no, this is like the real deal. Like this is you actually truly coming from a place of self-love. And I think that's something I'll speak for myself. I know it's something that helps me be a better person, seeing you do that and me being able to have that mirror and reflection back and be like, oh my God, like I need to be able to be better at actually this self-love and having that conscious connection as well. So I think, okay, this is brilliant. Um, you had a very remarkable birth, Mel, when it come to Bambi coming into this world. But before I dive into that, I kind of want to connect these two dots where it's a case of with Holy Mama, you've had such a great experience in such a conscious way of you even like documenting everything that you've been able to go through, but then also having so many experts behind the scenes now be able to put this together. I think it's a blending of a great self kind of like N of one experiment, but then also having, do you know what I mean, the kind of like expert panel then be able to chime in on everything as well. I'd love to know when putting Holy Mama together, like how do you actually distill all of that down? Like how do you actually bring that together for it to be a cohesive message?
Well, good question. So the program is spread out over 8 weeks, but it's broken up into 4 modules and it kind of goes in order. So the first 2 weeks is about conscious conception, and then it
Mm.
flows on to pregnancy, and then it goes on to birth and postpartum, and then conscious parenting. So it kind of is like this cohesive journey that I take women on. And no matter where you're at in your journey to, if you're pregnant already, you'll still get so much out of this.
Mhm.
If you are wanting to come in for the conscious parenting, you'll still get so much out of this. And if you have daughters, like this is the stuff you want to learn to teach them. Like this
Mm,
is the gold. So it's kind of like a cohesive flow from the moment that you entertain the idea of one day being a mama, like this will take you that whole journey through, and everything you need to know for the body, the mind, and the spirit. And that's what a holy mama is. A holy mama is a mama who integrates the body, the mind, and the spirit into everything that she does, into the conception, the pregnancy, the birth, the parenting, her work, her relationships, everything. She integrates those. And I want to create holy mamas all over the world, because when we create holy mamas, a holy mama is also an empowered woman. And
mm,
when we have empowered women all over the world, they raise empowered children. And those children are the game changers. These children that are on this earth right now and are coming through right now, they are extraordinary human beings. Extraordinary. Like I've got full goosebumps. They are
mm,
star seeds. They have chosen to come now in this time, and they are like, we like, mom, dad, we got this. Like we got, don't worry about us. Don't worry about the planet. Like, yes, do your part, and we're here. We're here now, you know? And so I truly believe that the light beams that are coming through right now are just next level, extraordinary human beings. And I'm so excited for it, and to be part of it and to witness it.
mm. This is okay. Remarkable. I just had a thought, so I'm going to turn my back on you for just one sec. Okay, here. I had this thought today. I was like, a lot of the time people struggle. They might be listening to a podcast, watching a video, and they see someone remarkable as yourself, and then they start doing something where they start comparing themselves to someone else. And I was like, oh, this Mel, she's a clever cookie right now. Again, so this is a fantastic book. I want to nip in the bud right now, Mel. If someone's somewhere along this journey and they're clearly comparing themselves to someone else, consciously or unconsciously, and there is a gap between where they are and how they're feeling and how they think that they should be feeling. And this thought came up before when you said like it wasn't happening on your timeline. And I find this very fascinating as a kind of like philosophy on life, as being like we can't control time, and things will unfold the way they unfold. So we can only really control certain things, really being our thoughts and our actions at the end of the day. If there is a holy mama listening to us right now, and even for you dads, I'm talking to you dudes as well, how do you best want to help them be able to come into their existence, their journey, their own timeline?
Such a great question. And I truly did suffer from comparisonitis whilst I was on my journey. And I share about it in the book. I share the stories that, you know, my friends, my best friend was getting pregnant, my other best friend was getting pregnant around me. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard for me. And I compared myself and looking at everyone on social media, and it was really hard. And I asked myself the question, is this serving me? Is this comparison serving me? And I talk about in Comparisonitis, the book, there's healthy comparison and then there's unhealthy comparison. And healthy comparison is like seeing someone doing an epic yoga pose and you're like, yeah,
Mm,
I want to do that. And then that's healthy comparison. Like, striving, seeing it as inspiration and motivation. And then there's very unhealthy, toxic comparison. And that's, we all can relate to that. And, social media can really play a big part in that. And I just want to remind you two things: to put your blinkers on, to put those horse blinkers on and just stay in your own lane. Like you are you, your baby is your baby, and no one is you, and you can't replicate anything else. So we really do need to stay in our own lane and remember that on social media, you're not seeing the totality of someone's existence. You're seeing, well, on stories, you're seeing 30 seconds a day or however many they do, a couple of minutes a day. You're not seeing everything. And you're seeing it's the highlight reels, social
Mm.
media is the highlight reels. And yes, even when I post not the highlights, so I post me crying, like literally, I've posted a photo of me bawling my eyes out and then talking about how it took us 18 months and, this was really hard time for me. People still choose to not see that. And then they'll say, like, oh, it's just the highlights. And, um, and I'm like, well, I do post that stuff, but people choose to see what they want to see. And so
Yes.
we have to remember that it's not everything, you're not seeing everything,
Mm.
and it's the highlight, and to put your blinkers on and just stay in your own lane. I know for me and for my mental health, I have to have boundaries around social media. I have to.
Mm.
Because if I don't have healthy boundaries, I will spiral into unhealthy comparison. So I have to have healthy boundaries around it, um, and be really firm with myself with those, because otherwise I just spiral into that toxic comparisonitis.
Mm. Mm. Okay, brilliant. Mel, fourth trimester, I want to talk about this before we wrap. I think this is a brilliant, brilliant time, especially because watching Lauren go through this four different times, and I think back to the last time with Noah, a a resting period to allow mother and child to come together and for there to be some actual like legitimate healing as well to be able to go on. What are your thoughts? What are your beliefs? What are your philosophies as to how best a mother and child should, maybe should is the incorrect word, may look at how the fourth trimester can look like?
Yes, we talk about this in the program because I'm so passionate about that fourth trimester, because it is very important. That is when the bonding with the baby and the mother really solidifies, and when the mother does all of her healing. So, well, when all of the healing needs to happen, and it's such a sacred and special and beautiful time. And they say that, there's the 40-day lying in period. And they say 40 days for 40 years in Ayurveda. And how you spend those 40 days is how your next 40 years will play out. So the more nourishing that you can be to yourself and your body, that's only going to benefit you for the next 40 years of your life. And so we spend so much time planning for the birth and the arrival of our baby. And then a lot of people forget about what happens after that. And it is so important. And so I talk about this in the program, and I did this personally. I planned and set myself up for a beautiful, blissful postpartum. And I was planning all through my pregnancy. I did so many different things to allow myself those 40 days of lying in. And those 40 days was just Nick, Bambi, and I at home. We didn't have visitors. Like, we had a few people come and
Mhm.
visit. We had a meal train happening. And it was the most beautiful, blissful love bubble. Like, and when we ended the 40 days, we were both so sad. We were like, oh my gosh, like, that was just the most beautiful 40 days of our life. And we'll never get to do that again, because the next baby will have Bambi. So,
Mm.
and it'll be a different type of experience, but we will never get to do the 40 days just like that ever again. And so we really embraced it. And we really set ourselves up for success. We set my business up so that it was still running. And we set Nick's music and his business up, and he was still releasing songs, but he wasn't like having to be in the studio or things like that. So we just gave ourselves, we literally blocked it out in my calendar and his calendar. We told our team no meetings, no podcasts. I had 3 months of podcasts up my sleeve. Like, don't call me unless it's absolutely urgent. And it was the most beautiful time. And it is a really beautiful time. That bonding that happens, the healing, it's so sacred. And you have to remember as well, like, depending on what you went through in your birth, like, if you had a natural vaginal birth, um, even if you've had a cesarean or any birth, there's a lot of healing that has to happen. Like, you bleed for 6 weeks for a lot of women, maybe longer, maybe shorter. Your uterus is contracting. There's so much that's happening. And so to get up and just go back out into your life is like, for me, I'm like, there's no way I could have done that. Like, I needed that time to rest and to just heal and to sleep and to bond and to feel nourished. And I felt so nourished and supported by our community. And it was truly so magical, like one of the best experiences of my life.
Mm, that's so cool you're saying that. Lauren said the exact same thing. And I think from a man's perspective as well, I remember some of my fondest moments was just like coming into the room and being able to sit by the side and just watching the two of them just lay on the bed and just be like fully present, like the absolute presence of Leia. Is nothing else that is happening. And then obviously it was interesting for last one with Noah coming, like I was just like, all right, you know what, I'm going to sleep on the floor, I'll take the other three, it's just you and Noah. So like, I'd take it, make sure the girls are all taken care of, school, everything like that, fed. And so Lauren could just literally stay inside of that room for that laying in period. And I think it's really cool. I think it's something not talked about a lot, which is why I get really excited about us being able to share this kind of stuff, because I've talked to so many, predominantly men, I talk to so many guys and soon to be fathers about this, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, they just think you're just doing like, get straight back on with life the next day. And I'm just like, no, like that, just like watching what a female goes through with birth is nothing short of awe-inspiring. And it's just like, there is a lot that has to happen for that child to come out and to be birthed in such a way. So this is brilliant. Mel, you're magnificent. Where does everyone go right now to become a part of Holy Mama and everything that you're also doing?
Oh, thank you. I've loved this conversation so much. You can head to Holy Mama, that's WHOLYMAMA.com. And the doors are open right now, but they close November 4th for Australians and November 3rd for Americans. So if you want to join us, it's now until then the doors are closing. And I don't know when I will open it back up again. I don't know, have any plans. I don't know. So if you do want to one day have a baby, even if that's in a few years, get the program now and start the conscious conception journey now. It is
Mm,
only going to benefit you and your baby and help you and your baby thrive. So start this journey now. And I am just so excited to hold your hand through this 8 weeks and to support you and to have you inside the program. And I also forgot to mention that you can upgrade to become a VIP mama as well, which I'll tell you about. So, as well as getting what I've already explained, the 8 weeks with all of those guest experts, you can get when you upgrade to become a VIP mama, you can get 5 extra masterclass Q&A sessions with some of the best doctors and scientists and fertility experts in the world. And you can submit your burning questions to them. Now, these
mm,
people you can't even work one-on-one with. And so it's like you can't get your questions answered by them. And so I've got Dr. Oscar Selleras, who wrote the postnatal depletion cure. I've got Dr. Stephen Cabral, who's my doctor.
mhm,
I've got Dr. Cleopatra, who is a fertility legend. I've got Deborah Pascali Bonero, who created the documentary Orgasmic Birth. And then I've
Mm.
got Dr. Sarah Buckley, who wrote Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering. So they are your 5 VIP experts, the VIP mama experts. So if you want to upgrade to become a VIP mama, you can do that as well. And there's a beautiful Facebook community of holy mamas all over the world. If you're wanting to find your tribe and connect with women, wherever you are in the world, they're inside, and we've already had so many people join, and I'm just so excited. It's really beautiful.
Incredible. All right. Well, we will make sure that that's linked across. Mel, you are a beautiful human being. Thank you for being such a great friend, and thank you for sharing yourself with us today. I really appreciate
Thank you, my love. I adore you.
it.